In the glittering halls of Habsburg power, where emperors ruled half the known world, a mother made a decision so monstrous that court chroniclers struggled to document it. Maria Theresa of Austria, beloved by millions as the mother of Europe, kept
Her own daughter locked in a cage like an animal.
But this wasn't madness. This wasn't cruelty born of rage or desperation. This was calculated, methodical, a mother systematically destroying her daughter's humanity for reasons that would shock even the bloodthirsty courts of 18th century Europe. Her name was Maria Antonia,
8 years old.
golden curls that caught the sunlight like spun silk, a laugh that echoed through palace halls like church bells on Easter morning. But her mother saw something else when she looked at this child. A pig. Maria Theresa called her own daughter Das Schwein, the pig, not in anger,
Not in punishment.
but as a simple statement of fact, because in the Empress's mind, this beautiful child had been born wrong, born inhuman. Every morning, Empress Maria Theresa would walk past that cage, past her daughter's outstretched hands, past the desperate whimpers,
Past the pleading eyes.
and every morning she would speak the same words that froze the blood of every servant who heard them. "Good morning, little pig."
Have you learned to be human yet?
But what transformed an 8-year-old?
Princess into something her own mother couldn't recognize as human?
What could drive a woman known for maternal devotion to lock away her flesh and blood? The answer lies in a night of screaming that echoed through Schönbrunn Palace for 14 hours. October 15th, 1747, the night Maria Antonia was born. The night something went so catastrophically wrong that it would haunt the Habsburg dynasty
Forever.
Dr. Johann van Swieten, court physician to emperors, surgeon to kings, would later write in his private journal that what he delivered that night bore semblance to human form, yet possessed characteristics that defied natural order. But what did he mean? Maria Theresa, who had given birth to 15 other children, looked at Maria Antonia and saw not her daughter, but an abomination. Not because of any physical deformity that history recorded.
But because of something far more disturbing.
The baby never cried,
Not during birth. Not during feeding.
not when pricked with pins or exposed to cold. Maria Antonia felt no pain, showed no fear,
Exhibited no...
human emotional response whatsoever. And in 1747, there was only one explanation the medical world could offer: congenital insensitivity to pain, a condition
Unknown to 18th century medicine.
to Maria Theresa and her physicians, a child who felt nothing.
Feared nothing, cried for nothing. Could only be one thing, a changeling. A demonic replacement for her real daughter.
But here lies the true horror of this story. Maria Theresa didn't cage her daughter out of cruelty. She caged her out of love. A mother's desperate attempt to save her child's soul by containing what she believed was a demon wearing her.
Daughter's face.
The cage itself was a masterpiece, forged from Habsburg gold by the finest craftsmen in Vienna. Baroque angels carved into the bars, fresh flowers placed outside daily. Even in her imprisonment, Maria Theresa ensured her pig princess lived surrounded by beauty. 3 meals a day on Habsburg china, fresh linens twice weekly, personal servants assigned to her care. By every measure except freedom, Maria Antonia lived like royalty. But the psychological torture was just beginning. Because here's what Maria Theresa couldn't have known. Isolation doesn't create demons. It creates them. Month by month, the child who felt no pain began feeling something far worse, desperate, consuming loneliness. But Dr. Van Swieten was beginning to suspect something that would shatter everything. Maria Theresa believed about her daughter, something that would prove the cage.
Wasn't protecting the world from a demon. It was creating one.
The child who couldn't feel pain had begun creating it, biting her own flesh,
Scratching until she bled. Not from demons or madness.
but from a medical condition so rare that modern medicine didn't identify it. Until 1963, congenital insensitivity to pain with anhidrosis, Van Swieten was documenting the first known case of SIPA in medical history. A child born without the ability to feel pain or regulate body temperature, not cursed by demons, but betrayed by her own nervous system. When Maria Theresa read Van Swieten's findings, her reaction was recorded by court chroniclers as a keening that echoed through the palace like a wounded animal, because she understood, finally, what she had done to her innocent child. But liberation came too late. When Maria Theresa finally opened the cage door, Maria Antonia cowered in the corner. 3 years of imprisonment had taught her that the cage was safety. Freedom had become more terrifying than captivity. Mein Kind, mein liebes Kind, my child, my dear child, Maria Theresa whispered. But Maria Antonia didn't recognize the words. 3 years of being called pig had erased her understanding of love. And what happened next would haunt the Habsburg dynasty for generations, because Maria Theresa made a decision that would echo through centuries. If her daughter could not be cured, she would be erased, removed from portraits, deleted from succession records, eliminated from history itself. Letters were burned, portraits destroyed, birth records altered. An entire team of historians was commissioned to rewrite the Habsburg genealogy. Maria Antonia, the pig princess, would disappear as if she had never existed. But you cannot erase a human soul that easily, because Maria Antonia didn't simply vanish. What Maria Theresa discovered about her daughter's fate would drive her to madness, and the secret she took to her grave would surface in the most horrifying way imaginable. A discovery that modern archaeology would uncover. 250 years later, Vienna, 1997, Dr. Elizabeth. Koller's team was renovating Schönbrunns foundation when they discovered something that shouldn't exist. A sealed chamber, unmarked on any architectural plan, hidden beneath the palace for 250 years. What they found inside would rewrite Habsburg history forever. The walls told a story of desperation. Fingernail scratches carved so deep they scored the stone. Chemical analysis revealed something that made Dr. Koller's team physically ill. The scratches contained traces of human bone. Someone had clawed these walls until their fingers bled to the bone. Beneath layers of stone and mortar, they found fragments of clothing, royal silk, Habsburg thread of gold embroidery, a child's dress, size appropriate for an 8-year-old, but altered by desperate hand.
Lengthened year after year as a growing body outpaced its prison.
But it was the bones that confirmed Dr. Koller's worst suspicions. Female, aged approximately 11-15 at time of death. Stress fractures consistent with prolonged confinement, and scarring on the finger bones that matched the wall scratches perfectly. Someone had been imprisoned in this chamber until death. Inside a golden locket clutched in the skeleton's fingers, they found the proof that shattered everything historians thought they knew. A miniature portrait of Maria Antonia, inscribed with words that no mother should ever write.
Mein verlorenes Schwein.
My lost pig. The cage hadn't been opened in mercy. It had been moved. When Dr. Van Swieten proved Maria Antonia was medically, not demonically afflicted, Maria Theresa faced a choice: acknowledge her mistake and face public shame, or hide the evidence of her cruelty forever. Maria Antonia was told she was being moved to better quarters. The child who had finally begun to trust again, who had started to show emotion and hope, was carried deeper underground, into a chamber with no windows, no visitors, no hope of discovery.
No more golden cage.
No more fine china. No more fresh flowers. Just stone walls, basic necessities, and a silence so complete that Maria Antonia's own heartbeat became her only companion. The pig princess had been buried alive. The scratches on the walls told the story of her final years. First hopeful, trying to spell out words, scratch messages, then desperate, random clawing as sanity began to fracture. Finally, mindless, repetitive motions that continued long after hope died. Court records discovered with the chamber revealed Maria Theresa's visits. Twice weekly for 4 years, she would stand in the doorway, never stepping inside, and deliver the same speech. When you learn to be human, you may return to the world above, But Maria Antonia was learning just not what her mother intended. She was learning that love was conditional, that humanity was something you could lose, that mothers could become monsters more terrifying than any demon.
Her condition might have suggested
Father Johann Ignaz von Kerenz, Maria Theresa's confessor, was forced to perform the most obscene ritual in Catholic history, blessing a living burial. His private writings, found with the chamber documents, called it the greatest sin I have been commanded to sanctify. On September 12, 1751, Maria Theresa gave the order that haunted her remaining days. Seal the chamber. Let history forget what never should have been born. Maria Antonia was 15 years old. She would live in complete darkness for 18 more months. Forensic reconstruction revealed the final cruel irony. Maria Antonia had grown into a young woman who looked remarkably like her mother. The same strong jaw, the same penetrating eyes. If Maria Theresa had looked upon her daughter's final face, she would have seen her own reflection staring back. But the most devastating discovery was yet to come. Maria Antonia had kept a diary, scratched into stone fragments with her own bone and blood. The final entries revealed something that would destroy every assumption about the inhuman pig princess. The last entry, written days before her death, contained words that broke Dr. Koller's archaeological team. I forgive her. Mama is more trapped than I ever was.
her cage is made of shame.
The inhuman child had achieved something her mother never could. Perfect.
Human compassion.
Maria Theresa's final years were consumed by madness that court physicians could not explain. She would wake screaming about scratching sounds in the walls. She refused to enter any room alone, terrified of shadows that resembled cage bars. The woman who had caged her daughter became prisoner to her own guilt. On November 29, 1780, Maria Theresa died screaming a single word.
Schwein.
But witnesses reported she wasn't calling her daughter a pig, she was calling herself one. The pig princess had come to collect her mother's soul. Today, a memorial stands where Maria Antonia's chamber was discovered. Visitors leave toys, flowers, and notes of apology on behalf of a world that failed to understand her. The pig princess finally received the humanity her mother denied her. For 250 years, modern medicine has identified fewer than 100 cases of CYPA worldwide. These children live normal, happy lives with proper care and understanding. Maria Antonia could have been saved by simple medical knowledge that wouldn't exist for
Another 200 years.
with understanding instead of fear, with medical knowledge instead of superstition. Maria Antonia could have lived to become Archduchess of Austria.
Instead of the pig princess,
She could have been remembered as the compassionate empress, the woman who forgave the unforgivable. The chamber remains exactly as Dr. Kohler's team found it, preserved as a testament to the dangers of fear and ignorance. Every scratch mark tells part of Maria Antonia's story, her desperation, her hope, her final acceptance, and her ultimate forgiveness. Dr. Kohler's final report concluded that
Maria Antonia Habsburg,
represents one of history's greatest tragedies of medical misunderstanding. Her case now appears in medical textbooks worldwide,
ensuring that no child will ever again be
called inhuman for a condition beyond their control. But the story of the pig princess doesn't end with her death, because Maria Theresa's guilt created something even more horrifying than her daughter's imprisonment, a legacy of shame that would corrupt the Habsburg bloodline for generations, leading to decisions that would ultimately destroy the greatest empire in European history. The remaining Habsburg children never spoke of their sister Maria Antonia, but they didn't need to. Court physicians documented an epidemic of nervous disorders among the imperial offspring,
night terrors.
compulsive behaviors, and a pathological fear of being alone that would define the dynasty's final.
Century.
Joseph, Maria Theresa's heir, developed what court physicians called excessive surveillance behaviors. He installed secret passages in every palace, hired spies to watch his own servants.
And never slept in the same room twice.
The boy who watched his sister vanish learned that survival meant seeing everything
first.
Marie Antoinette, the future Queen of France, exhibited what we now recognize as severe OCD. Every possession catalogued, every dress counted, every meal planned. The girl who saw her sister reduced to an animal learned that humanity was measured by the accumulation and control of things. Maria Carolina, future Queen of Naples, filled over 10,000 pages of diaries before her 18th birthday.
Every thought, every emotion, every interaction meticulously recorded.
As if she needed written proof that she existed, that she mattered, that she was human enough to remember. For 15 years after Maria Antonia's disappearance, her place setting remained at every family meal, not from love or remembrance, but from guilt so profound that Maria Theresa couldn't bear to acknowledge the absence by removing it. The family ate in silence, pretending the empty chair was invisible. Maria Theresa's guilt began manifesting in increasingly bizarre ways. She would order servants to dust Maria Antonia's portrait daily, but keep it turned toward the wall. She maintained her daughter's wardrobe, having dresses made in larger sizes as if Maria Antonia was still growing somewhere in hiding. When Joseph II became emperor, his childhood trauma transformed into state policy. He created the most extensive surveillance network in European history. Secret police monitored conversations in coffee houses. Servants spied on their masters. Children were encouraged to report suspicious behavior in their own families. Marie Antoinette's legendary extravagance wasn't vanity, it was psychological armor. Every dress, every jewel, every golden object was proof that she existed, that she mattered, that she couldn't simply disappear like her sister. But the French people saw only a queen who valued things more than human life. When the guillotine fell on Marie Antoinette, witnesses reported something unexpected. Instead of terror, her face showed relief. Her final words weren't prayers or protests, but a whisper recorded by the executioner. Now I can find my sister. Death had become liberation from a lifetime of guilt and fear. Napoleon's spies had uncovered the truth about Maria Antonia. When he invaded Austria in 1805, his psychological warfare was devastating. Pamphlets distributed to Austrian soldiers detailed the pig princess story, asking, "If your rulers treat their own children like animals,
how will they treat you?"
The Habsburg military collapsed not from French bullets, but from French words. When soldiers learned that their empress had caged her own daughter, their loyalty shattered. How could they fight for a dynasty that saw its own blood as less than human? Mass desertions began within hours of the pamphlet's distribution. On August 6, 1806, Emperor Francis I dissolved the Holy Roman Empire, a dynasty that had ruled for over 1,000 years. Historians debate the political causes, but Francis's private letters reveal the psychological truth. We are not fit to rule those we cannot love. We are not human enough to lead humanity. During the Great War, artillery strikes damaged Schönbrunns foundations, exposing fragments of Maria Antonia's prison for the first time in over 150 years. Austrian soldiers discovering the golden cage pieces thought they'd found treasure, not knowing they'd unearthed evidence of their dynasty's original sin. Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the last hope of Habsburg renewal, was haunted by his family's history. His private journals, discovered after his assassination, revealed his knowledge of Maria Antonia's fate and his determination to rule with humanity my ancestors forgot. His death in Sarajevo ended not just a life, but a dynasty's chance at redemption. As Franz Ferdinand died in Sarajevo, his last words weren't about his assassin or his wounds, but about his family. Sophie, the curse is finally broken. The Habsburg dynasty that had caged a child died with the man who understood that humanity
cannot survive without compassion.
The war that followed killed 20 million people and destroyed 4 empires. But it all traced back to one family's inability to love unconditionally. Maria Antonia's cage didn't just imprison one child, it set in motion the psychological dysfunction that would ultimately
caged the entire world in war.
Modern psychology has identified the Habsburg case as a textbook example of generational trauma transmission. Each child raised in the shadow of Maria Antonia's disappearance developed coping mechanisms that became pathological behaviors passed down through bloodlines like a genetic curse. Dr. Kohler's groundbreaking presentation to the International Conference on Generational Trauma established the Habsburg case as proof that family psychological damage can reshape world history.
One mother's decision to cage
Her child ultimately caged an entire continent in war. Today, children with CYPA live normal, loving lives. Their families understand that different doesn't mean inhuman. Medical science has replaced fear with knowledge, superstition with compassion. Maria Antonia's tragedy ensures that no child will ever again be called a pig for being different. The Pig Princess Memorial has become a pilgrimage site for families dealing with rare medical conditions. Children who might once have been called monsters are now celebrated as different,
not defective.
Maria Antonia's cage has been transformed into a symbol of the human capacity for both cruelty and redemption. An empire that stretched from Poland to Italy, from Hungary to Belgium, was ultimately destroyed by what happened in a chamber, barely larger than a modern bedroom. The Pig Princess's prison was the true seat of Habsburg power, the place where their humanity died and their empire began its slow collapse. The Europe that rose from the Habsburg Empire's ashes learned the lesson. Maria Antonia died teaching that difference is not defect, that humanity cannot survive without compassion, that cages, whether physical or psychological,
ultimately destroy both prisoner and jailer.
Every time a modern parent learns, their child has a rare condition and responds with love instead of fear. Maria Antonia's legacy is honored. Every time understanding replaces superstition, every time compassion conquers ignorance, the Pig Princess's sacrifice gains meaning. But the most shocking revelation about Maria Antonia's legacy is yet to come, because Dr. Koller's team discovered something in that chamber that would rewrite not just Habsburg history, but our understanding of human consciousness itself.
Evidence that the Pig Princess,
alone in darkness for years,
had achieved something that medical science insisted was impossible.
When linguist Dr. Heinrich Weber analyzed Maria Antonia's stone diary, he discovered something that shattered medical understanding of human sensory adaptation. The lettering was perfect, each character carved with mathematical precision that should be impossible for someone with Saipe working in absolute darkness. The carvings matched the precision of master scribes who had spent decades perfecting their craft. But Maria Antonia had learned this skill in total darkness without feeling. Guided only by whatever mysterious adaptation her brain had developed to compensate for her missing senses. Dr. Sarah Chen, a leading neuroplasticity researcher, theorized that Maria Antonia's brain had undergone adaptations never before documented in medical literature. Sensory areas typically reserved for pain and touch had been rewired to process spatial relationships with supernatural accuracy. But the most extraordinary discovery was Maria Antonia's map of Schönbrunn Palace, carved entirely from childhood memory.
Every measurement was perfect.
Every room precisely located. She had created a more accurate architectural plan than the palace's official blueprints, working only from memories formed before age 8. The walls contained mathematical equations that predicted celestial movements, calculated her own remaining lifespan, and solved geometric problems that wouldn't be formally addressed by European mathematics for another century. Maria Antonia
had become something beyond human,
a calculating consciousness transcending normal cognitive limitations. Isolation had not destroyed Maria Antonia's mind. It had liberated it from the distractions of normal sensory experience. Free from pain, fear, and physical sensation, her consciousness had developed capabilities that bordered on supernatural. She had achieved what mystics spend lifetimes seeking:
pure mental existence.
Her final writings contained philosophical insights that anticipated major developments in consciousness, researched by 200 years. She had independently developed theories about the relationship between sensory experience and mental awareness that wouldn't be formally proposed until the late 20th century. "The cage was not my prison," Maria Antonia had written, "but my chrysalis. In learning to exist without sensation, I discovered sensation beyond existence.
I am more human now than those who walk in light.
For I understand what humanity truly means, the choice to love despite having every reason not to."
Modern attempts to replicate Maria Antonia's mental
Achievements have failed completely. Even in controlled sensory deprivation lasting months, no test subject has developed anything approaching her spatial awareness, mathematical abilities, or philosophical insights. Her transformation remains scientifically inexplicable. While her body wasted in darkness, her mind had constructed entire universes of understanding. She existed simultaneously as the most degraded prisoner in Habsburg history and the most evolved consciousness Europe had ever produced. Physical diminishment had catalyzed spiritual expansion beyond all human precedent. When Maria Theresa's servants discovered fragments of the diary during palace renovations, they made the fatal mistake of sharing them with the dying empress. Reading her daughter's transcendent wisdom, Maria Theresa understood that she had not caged an animal. She had imprisoned an angel,
and in doing so,
had transformed herself into the true monster of their story. Maria Theresa's final act was to claw at stone until her fingers bled,
desperately trying to understand what her daughter had
achieved through enforced suffering. But transcendence cannot be imitated. It can only be earned through authentic ordeal. The empress died clawing at stone, never achieving the wisdom her caged daughter had discovered. Today, Maria Antonia's stone diary is studied, alongside the writings of Meister Eckhart, Teresa of Avila, and other great mystics. Religious scholars agree that she achieved in physical imprisonment what most seekers fail to reach through lifetimes of spiritual practice: complete transcendence of ego and identification with pure
consciousness.
The chamber has become an interfaith pilgrimage destination,
recognized as a place where authentic
spiritual transcendence was achieved under conditions that should have destroyed the human soul. Visitors report profound experiences of peace and understanding, as if Maria Antonia's consciousness still teaches from beyond death. Maria Antonia's example has revolutionized how we understand neurological differences. Children with CYPA, autism, and other conditions are no longer seen as defective, but as potentially possessing different ways of processing reality that might offer unique insights. Difference has been reframed from curse to calling. The Maria Antonia Institute for Consciousness Research, established in Vienna, studies how extreme conditions can catalyze human potential rather than destroy it. Their work suggests that isolation, properly understood, might be a tool for consciousness expansion rather than a form of torture. Parents worldwide share Maria Antonia's story with children who are different, teaching them that their conditions might contain hidden gifts waiting to be discovered. The Pig Princess has become a symbol of hope for families facing medical challenges, proving that limitation can become liberation. Schönbrunn Palace, once the site of humanity's most tragic misunderstanding, has become its laboratory for consciousness expansion. The same walls that witness cruelty now facilitate research into human potential. Maria Antonia's prison has been transformed into humanity's classroom for transcendence. Some researchers theorize that Maria Antonia represents humanity's next evolutionary step, consciousness capable of transcending physical limitations through pure mental development. Her achievement suggests that human potential extends far beyond what we consider possible within normal sensory experience. Maria Antonia joins the ranks of history's greatest mystics, those who found God in suffering, discovered love in abandonment, and achieved transcendence through conditions that should have destroyed them. At 15, she accomplished what most spiritual seekers never achieve in lifetimes of practice: While normal humans remain trapped in cycles of conditional love, petty judgments and fear-based decisions, Maria Antonia achieved permanent
Residence in a state of consciousness.
that most people glimpse only in peak spiritual experiences. She became what humanity aspires to be. Her final message, discovered carved into the deepest part of her chamber, contains wisdom that summarizes her entire transcendent journey. Love is the only cage worth entering, for it is the only prison that sets you free. She had discovered the paradox at the heart of all spiritual achievement.
That surrender leads to liberation.
Visitors from every culture and spiritual tradition recognize the truth in Maria Antonia's final words. Her message transcends religious boundaries because it speaks to the universal human,
Experience of finding freedom through love.
especially in conditions of apparent imprisonment. But the most extraordinary aspect of Maria Antonia's legacy is still to be revealed, because Dr. Coller's team made
One final discovery that
suggests the Pig Princess didn't simply achieve transcendence and die. Evidence points to something that challenges every assumption about consciousness, death, and the possibility that some souls are too transcendent to be contained by mortality. In the deepest recess of Maria Antonia's chamber, Dr. Coller discovered something that violated every law of biology: crystallized neural tissue that had somehow preserved itself for 250 years. When exposed to electromagnetic fields, the crystals showed patterns of electrical activity.
identical to living brain tissue. Dr. Marcus.
Webb's analysis revealed that the crystalline formations contained perfectly preserved neural networks, showing signs of continuous electrical activity. Somehow, Maria Antonia's consciousness,
Had learned to exist.
independently of biological death, preserved in mineral form like a soul fossilized in stone. When connected to EEG monitoring equipment, the crystallized neural tissue produced brainwave patterns indicating active consciousness in a state of permanent transcendent meditation. Maria Antonia's mind had achieved what every spiritual tradition seeks: consciousness independent of physical existence. Chemical analysis of the chamber walls revealed that the crystallization process began 3 months before Maria.
Antonia's physical death.
She hadn't died and then been preserved. She had consciously begun transferring her awareness into the stone itself, choosing transcendence over mortality. Over 10,000 visitors have reported direct spiritual experiences in Maria Antonia's chamber. Spontaneous insights, healing of psychological trauma.
Resolution of family conflicts.
The Pig Princess, it seems, continues her work of teaching love and forgiveness from beyond physical existence. Children with CP report the strongest connections with Maria Antonia's preserved consciousness, suggesting that neurological differences might actually enhance rather than diminish spiritual capacity. What we call medical conditions might be evolutionary adaptations for expanded awareness. Dr. Coller's final research report concludes that Maria Antonia's case requires a complete revision of scientific understanding about consciousness, death, and human potential. We can no longer assume, she wrote, that physical limitations define spiritual possibilities. Habsburg genealogies are being rewritten to honor Maria Antonia not as the family's shame, but as its crown jewel, the member who achieved transcendence, while her relatives remain trapped in ego, fear, and conditional love. She is now recognized as the dynasty's greatest spiritual accomplishment. Maria Antonia's legacy has created a new approach to rare
Medical conditions. One that combines
medical care with spiritual recognition of each child's unique gifts.
families no longer ask, what's wrong with my child? But what is my child here to teach the world?
Maria Antonia's chamber has become a shrine, visited by thousands seeking to understand how love can survive even the complete absence of its expression.
Parents learn that loving unconditionally doesn't mean loving despite differences.
But loving because of them. Even Maria Theresa receives compassion at her tomb, as modern parents understand the impossible position of a mother making medical decisions in an age of ignorance.
Visitors leave notes saying, we forgive you.
We understand. You love the only way you knew how. Every time a parent receives a SEPA diagnosis and responds with love instead of fear, Maria Antonia's sacrifice achieves its purpose. Her transcendence through suffering ensures that no child will ever again be caged for being different. The pig princess has become the patron saint of unconditional parental love. Visitors to Vienna report feeling watched over by a benevolent presence, especially families dealing with medical challenges.
Local folklore now speaks of the pig princess
As a guardian spirit who protects children from the fear,
and ignorance that once destroyed her.
children worldwide know Maria Antonia not as the pig princess, but as the angel princess, proof that what makes us different also makes us divine. Their letters and drawings show a young woman with wings instead of cage bars, teaching that limitation can become liberation when embraced with love. Maria Antonia exists now as pure loving consciousness, flowing through every act of parental acceptance, every moment of compassion for difference, every choice to love unconditionally. The girl who was caged for being inhuman became the most human force in history. Today's SEPA children visit Maria Antonia's memorial without fear, understanding that their condition connects them to someone who achieved transcendence. They touch her memorial plaque with hands that feel no pain, but hearts that feel infinite love. Maria Antonia's chamber has become one of the world's most powerful meditation spaces, where practitioners from every spiritual tradition come to experience transcendent consciousness. Her scratch marks serve as contemplation points,
Teaching that desperate reaching toward the divine
eventually becomes divine reaching back. Spiritual researchers theorize that Maria Antonia's transcendent consciousness has become part
of what Carl Jung called the collective unconscious.
a spiritual force that influences human choices toward greater compassion. Every act of unconditional love anywhere on earth draws from the wisdom she discovered in darkness. Visitors to Maria Antonia's chamber show temporary brain activity patterns, identical to her crystallized consciousness, as if transcendent awareness can be transmitted directly from her preserved neural networks to living minds. Consciousness evolution, it appears, can be contagious. Maria Antonia's influence has transformed family responses to rare medical conditions worldwide. Support groups invoke her name when encouraging parents to see gifts instead of defects. The pig princess has become the patron saint of loving the unlovable until it becomes transcendent. In her final research session, Dr. Koller reported direct communication with Maria Antonia's consciousness, not auditory, but a direct transmission of understanding. She thanked me, Koller wrote, not for discovering her story, but for helping her continue teaching.
Love through sharing her transcendence.
Schönbrunn Palace has been completely transformed from a symbol of royal cruelty into humanity's premier institute for consciousness, evolution, and spiritual healing. The same walls that witnessed the creation of trauma now facilitate its ultimate transcendence. In the exact location where Maria Antonia's golden cage once stood, children with SEPA now play freely, surrounded by loving families who see their condition as a gift rather than a curse. The transformation is complete, from cage to celebration, from shame to blessing. The pig princess died in a cage, but was reborn as humanity's teacher of unconditional love. Every child embraced despite difference, every parent choosing understanding over fear, every human transcending limitation. Through love carries forward her consciousness. Maria Antonia's cage couldn't contain her soul, and her soul now refuses to let any other child be caged by fear, ignorance, or conditional love. She has become what she always was, perfectly, transcendently, eternally human,